Hi, my name is Hadi. Today I'd like to speak about the relationship between educational policies and educational issues. I plan to go in depth into a well-known educational policy and propose ways that this issue could be addressed. However, first we must define what a policy is. In short, policies simply guide our actions. Policies can be guidelines, rules, regulations, laws, principles, or directions. They say what is to be done, who is to do it, how it is to be done, and for whom it is to be done. However, policies invent issues which become policy problems. An educational policy that I believe has caused educational issues is NAPLAN. The National Assessment Program, Literacy and Numeracy, is an annual national assessment for all students in years 3, 5, 7, and 9. All students in these year levels are expected to participate in tests in reading, writing, language conventions, spelling, grammar and punctuation, and numeracy. NAPLAN is the measure through which governments, education authorities, schools, teachers, and parents can determine whether or not young Australians have the literacy and numeracy skills that provide the critical foundation for other learning and for their productive and rewarding participation in the community. Research conducted by Joanna Wynne and her team, University of Melbourne, show that NAPLAN has had significant unintended consequences. Professor Wynne states that two of these include a negative impact on both the quality of learning and student well-being. Educational issues with NAPLAN. The NAPLAN policy has three main issues. Number one, limited view on learning capabilities. The NAPLAN policy is not effective as it only provides teachers, parents, and students with a very limited view of a student's learning capabilities at school. The test results do not tell teachers, who do their job and care about each of the students they teach, anything more than they already know about their students and how they are doing in their learning. The time of the year, in May, has been chosen to suit the needs of those administering the assessment, not those being assessed. The feedback to the schools and parents only takes place 3 to 4 months after the test. In many cases, this makes the results irrelevant as students have moved on with their education. These test results often cause low self-esteem in very young students who do not have the level of maturity to place the whole context of the assessment in the right perspective, causing further stress and anxiety to students who already know that they are struggling at school. Number two, NAPLAN does not consider students of different backgrounds and learning levels. NAPLAN does not take into consideration the ethnic background or culture that many students originate from. The assessment system does not make any room for students who are new to Australia or who have spent less than 5 years speaking English. These students and the schools that take them in are expected to cope and compete with other students from around Australia who have been using standard Australian English for many years and who have a very good inherent understanding of the Australian context and way of life. This is simply unfair to all concerned. Issue number three, NAPLAN disrupts the real learning that takes place in school. Teachers are often forced to place NAPLAN skills above that of their normal curriculum. Students spend many hours practicing and drilling mock tests and NAPLAN style questions in hope of scoring well in assessments. As a result of all the focus, many students become disengaged in their learning and become disinterested in their learning as well, and become over-invested in the whole concept of NAPLAN. In conclusion, we are flooded with data that we don't seem to pay attention to, and we don't have access to some data that would enable us to have a clear-headed assessment of how school systems are faring and how specific education policies are affecting them. How I would address NAPLAN's issues. Firstly, one must understand how policies can work to the advantages and disadvantages of people and how they give justice to the groups that are affected. After thorough research into NAPLAN structure, I have three proposals which may address the issues discussed earlier. Proposal number one, progressive testing. Instead of observing marks for a single standardized exam, I propose that observation of progression between exams should be prioritized to see how students' learning are being developed. For example, a progression for writing might describe a student's development as improving from sentence level punctuation is genuinely satisfactory to starts to use descriptive language and wider range of words. This will allow teachers to understand where the students are now, how much they've improved, and how they can continually improve their teaching method so that students can progress even further. Prog- uh, Number two, tailored testing. Instead of having a standardized exam such as NAPLAN, I propose that we conduct exams that are adaptive, which means the questions would become more difficult or easier based on the child's skills. This would give a more accurate, fine-grained picture of how well the child has mastered the skills within the learning progression. Proposal number three, online integration. NAPLAN is conducted through a written test, assessing students in a variety of learning areas. I propose that tests should include some online integration as the society we live in today is heavily based on technological interactions. This would benefit them more. Tests should grant student access to a limited number of internet sites, included within the boundaries of the test system. It would assess reading to locate information using a search engine, reading to synthesize information across multiple web pages, reading to critically evaluate the reliability of information found on the internet, and writing to communicate a short report of research. This type of assessment mirrors embedded literacy practices and numeracy practices present in everyday life and schooling that reflect today's students' world. In conclusion, the way NAPLAN is structured now has a negative impact on both the quality of student learning and student well-being. NAPLAN should be shifted to benefit each individual student, rather than distinguishing disadvantaged students from those who are not. Thank you for listening.